Welcome to the Chuck Shoe Podcast. My guest today is comedian Andrew Rivers. He's actually had quite an interesting path to comedy, which we will talk about, of course, in the interview. He's very candid and has a really interesting story of how he got into comedy and how he stuck with it, even when it's not always been the easiest thing to do. But he did stick with it, and I'm glad that he did, because his videos have amassed over 15 million views. He's toured the world, and he even has his own special out titled Laffy Taffy. He's on tour now, so check out his website for tour dates. He's actually from Washington State, near my hometown. So he'll often do shows around Washington State. I know I have a lot of listeners from Washington State. This was just a really fun interview. Probably the hardest I've laughed in a long time. So I think I really enjoyed it, and I think you guys will too. Here we go. Okay, my guest today is a very funny comedian from my hometown of Seattle. He has a special out right now titled Laffy Taffy. Please welcome the very funny comedian Andrew Rivers.
Hello.
Andrew, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for
I hope I got that right. To Laffy Taffy is the name of the special, right?
Yes.
Cool. So, it's
on Dry Bar Comedy.
Dry Bar Comedy, right?
People know where
but it's on like YouTube.
It's on YouTube, Facebook. It's wherever you look. If you just look Andrew Rivers special.
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes
Yeah.
I actually specifically did not watch your special because I thought I want to be surprised tonight.
Okay.
Although I watched a lot of clips, so I'll probably see some stuff I recognize.
The special is from 2017, so it won't be an issue.
Yeah. So how I discovered you was Craig Gass, who was on my show.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got him, but I got him somehow, and he's a super nice guy.
Yeah. If you just message most people, they'll be like, "I'm lonely." Yeah.
Well, he told me, he made me feel special. He's like, I never say yes to these. He's like,
funny.
But you were like, I think I sent him a picture of like me with him, and I was wearing Seahawks. I randomly saw him at the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl was in Phoenix, and I recognized him.
Oh, crazy.
Because I follow him and stuff, and he goes, he's like, oh, you made me feel so cool. I reminded him of that, and he's like, I always say no, but I'll do your podcast. I was like, really? Wow. He's like, that's really great. Cool. But yeah, he posted a picture with you. So I was like, who's this guy? I was funny. So I went on your Instagram, and I think the first thing I saw that made me instantly a fan was the, I don't want to give it too much away because I want people to find it, but it was the sex toy prank video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's an old joke. Like a lot of the stuff there's plenty of current stuff on there too.
Yeah.
But I like just putting out content because then people discover it, and then people come see a show, and then they're like, oh, it's completely different. This guy's a genius,
No, it's great because they have that and I just figured out how to do this to add the videos to IGTV.
Right.
So you can go to your IG and you can look at you have tons of bits, and you're good at putting the titles on them and stuff. And
I hired I have employees.
Oh, really?
I hired a lady to do all the editing and the graphic design and stuff like that. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, because I don't want to have to do. I'm driving around. I'm
right.
flying.
Yeah. You got some stuff to do.
I got podcasts to record.
Yeah. Second one today, right?
Absolutely.
It's awesome. Part of this.
Hope I don't reuse the same bits.
Oh, no. Yeah, we'll be fresh material here. But so what other Seattle, do you know Justin Ruppel, Fahim Anwar, Jeff Dye, all those guys, Seattle comedians?
Yep.
And then I've had Ted Alexandro. I think you follow him too.
I do follow Ted. I have a funny Ted story. If you want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So my first sort of year, I was like on the road hardcore. I was like maybe 3 years into comedy probably, and I booked like 5 weekends in a row. Mm-hmm. And it went like Minneapolis, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Indianapolis, Wichita, Kansas, and then Denver, Colorado. And so I just made I moved all my stuff into storage. I moved out of my apartment. I lived in my car for a month, and I just drove around because I was making like $300 a week or something.
Yeah.
Plus, sell CDs and stuff like that. But I was not making a ton of money to fly there and fly back.
Sure.
So I would live in my car for a couple months at a time, and this was like the first run I did. And so I'm in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm emceeing. And it's like a Friday night late show. It's like starting at 10:30, and they're holding the show because Ted Alexandro and the British guy that had the late night show at the time.
I know. I'm picturing him in my head. But
Craig. No, not Craig. Anyway,
Dana. My girlfriend is googling it. Producer.
Ferguson? Yes, Craig Ferguson. Yes. There you go. Yeah. So Ferguson is headlining a casino up the road. Ted is opening for him. So they walk in, And at the time, I didn't know who Ted was.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, Craig Ferguson. And I'm the MC, so I go up to Craig Ferguson. I go, hey, do you want to do a guest set? And he laughs at me. And he goes, no. He just knew the comedy club owner, so he came to like watch the show.
Okay.
And I like MC'd. I did like my 5 minutes because I was like, I was so nervous. I was like, this is my like audition for the Ferguson show. And like the other comic is trying to calm me down.
Not really, but just in your head.
Yeah, in my head. Yeah.
Okay.
He just
you're
showed
thinking
up.
if you killed it, he could be like, hey kid, I want you on my show.
Yeah, I'm making you. Yeah. Yeah. Like showbiz, how it used to be. Like you're the guy, right?
Smoking a cigar.
Absolutely. In an alley, and you got spunk, kid, and so. I'm thinking like this is my moment. I'm gonna be famous after just 2-3 years of comedy.
Yeah.
And I do my set. And it goes okay. And the middle act, his name is Jeff Tate, and he goes, "Hey."
Is that the singer of Queensryche?
No, just same name. Yeah.
I think I have seen him actually. Yeah. I feel like I've seen that before.
So he goes, look. He's just here to see his buddy. None of us are getting booked.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it's a good point. And so I calm down and I do the show. And then they leave. And then they call the club. And they go, who is the middle comic's name? He went up. He was wearing like a jean jacket vest. And he had like a beer bottle in the inside pot. I'm trying to be clean, right?
Yeah,
and he's up there going, yeah, this one time I took LSD and I fought a Halloween thing because someone was in a costume. I fought him because I thought it was. And he's like telling this weird story. Okay. And then they just thought he was so funny that they called the club and they go, hey, we want to book that guy on Ferguson. And so
this guy really did this.
And he was the one who was like, no one's getting booked, just do your act.
Oh, okay.
But that was the lesson of like, hey, just always do your best at the time, the show that you're on, and let things fall into play. But Ted, he like uploaded a Facebook photo of me to be like, hey, we're at the comedy club. I just happened to be on stage.
Yeah.
But what's funny is, Facebook alerts you to be like, hey, this might be you.
Yeah.
And so I saw the photo somehow and I go, hey, that was me. And he sent me a message privately to be like, hey, it was a great job. Keep it up. And that was like,
that's
keep
awesome.
going. You know what I mean? Like, Ted Alexandro thinks I'm good.
Yeah, no, I think he's really funny. Have you heard his La Bamba joke?
I don't know.
Check that out afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you. But so, anyways,
all right.
But going back to your background,
off track.
Yeah, no, that was great. I love. We can go as many tangents. Right, it was a good one. You're born in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester.
Yeah, it's not like. Didn't Adam Sandler do a bit about that?
I don't know.
I feel like he did. But you actually grew up in my hometown, Seattle. Well, Snoqualmie.
Yeah.
Did you go to Mount Si?
Mount Si High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know people from there.
Yep. I just did the North Bend Theater, actually. I sold 265 seats out.
Nice.
So it was kind of like, who's the star quarterback now?
Yeah. Were you like teased in high school and stuff? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, absolutely. Look at this face. It's like a very punchable face.
But so you did, because I know you did like the TV announcements or something, or TV program.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So they had a like news show kind of.
Yeah.
And it was like Wildcat TV. And me and my buddy were like the anchors for a while, where we would be like, hey, and it was like student run television, so it was bad. And
but it wasn't funny, because the ones at my school were actually pretty funny. The kids that did it.
The reason we got into it is because it wasn't funny,
and
we kept watching the show and being like, "Hey,
we could do better.
We could do better," and which really inspires a lot of people to try things. That's why I did comedy.
That's what my podcast. I hope to inspire people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hey, I can do better than this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope people watch my show and go, "I can do that. That's not that hard." So, what was I even talking about?
About doing the TV show that is Anchor.
Yeah. So we just had ideas because it was like a rich neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there were kids that had like tricked out Honda Civics and they were like, we're rad rides. And it was like a show. So they had
kind of like Pimp My Ride?
Yeah. It was just they already had cool cars and they wanted to show it off on TV. And it was fine.
Okay.
So we wanted to do sad rides. because like I drove a Saturn and my buddy had like a Ford Ranger 2-wheel drive pickup that had like a dent in the side.
Okay.
So we just like we're like 0 to 60 in 12 seconds downhill. You know, we tried to make it like MTV.
So you're kind of like mocking them.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of like, which is like the Jester's role. I mean, like if you go to Kingdom days, it was like to make fun of the royalty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be hey, fuck you up there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah, we're getting shit on, but we're clever.
Yeah.
You know?
So
like,
did people like it? Or
yeah, it was great.
Okay.
And that was what was interesting is like that recognition in the hallway was like, then I started to enjoy high school because it was like, people were like, hey,
what's
you were
that
funny.
like? I don't know what that's like to enjoy high school.
I only had like 3 months of it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's more than I had.
A little bit, yeah.
You and I could have been friends in high school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. But so anyways, if people don't know, your dad is Bob Rivers.
Correct.
I grew up listening to him. Amazing, longtime Seattle radio host, 99.9 Twisted Radio. They did a lot of those Twisted tunes, which were like the song parodies.
Right.
The Christmas ones, I think they're kind of like nationally known, right?
Yeah.
And then the one song that I remember that's also like another kind of probably nationally known is the Jon Osbourne version of What If God Was One of Us, but they turned into What If God Smoked Cannabis.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing this. I don't know if this is true, but I remember listening. Maybe I misremembered this, but I feel like they were talking about it and how they ran into her manager, and he's like, "Hey, when did you get Joan to do that?" And they're like,
really?
That wasn't Joan. That was like, that's how the level of your dad's show.
That's
like,
funny.
Was that good? So
Their production quality on those were amazing.
They really were.
Yeah.
So I know you've been asked like what it's like to have him as your dad,
Sure.
and you said you didn't think it was that big a deal. Like I know, like I just listened to a podcast with Tucker Max. I don't know if you know who he is. He's like an author, but anyways, he's like, my kid, is 2 years old, 5 years old, whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a shit doesn't care that I'm, this #1 selling New York Times bestseller or whatever. Right. So, but you said, now that you're older and doing comedy, this is a quote you said, you forgive him for missing your Little League games.
Yeah.
Did he miss a lot of your Little League games?
Well, what's funny about that is that I was working on a joke about that, and then I was like talking to my dad about it, and he was like, I sat through plenty of shitty soccer games. You know what I mean? And the fact that he described it so well, like he didn't just say like, I went to plenty of your games or whatever. He was like, I sat through a ton of your shitty soccer matches, which is like, that's what it was for him, to just sit through them.
Right.
He's not enjoying himself.
No, I can't watch soccer myself, so I can't imagine if I have a kid that I have to sit through it. Though.
Professional soccer is not that interesting.
Yeah, I can't try
watching kids do it is even worse.
Right.
That's why I don't like college football, because it's like a bad version of a thing I like.
You don't like college football?
No, because NFL football is really good.
But college is, you get to
even half of NFL football is not that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just like a skill level thing. But
so he did.
I do watch the finals of anything.
Yeah,
basically.
definitely.
But anyways, he was like, "No, I sat through plenty of them." And I was
do you remember him missing stuff?
I don't know. I think I remember him just being busy all the time.
Sure. Oh, okay.
But I do have a flashback of like, I remember one time I overheard him on the phone being like, "Yes, the flight is April 12th. I will be there, whatever." And then he hangs up, and I'm like, "That's my birthday." And he goes like, Jesus Christ. And then he calls back and he's like, yeah, I gotta change it to April 13th or whatever. And,
like you're a burden for having a birthday,
but
being born on that day.
It was probably important.
Sure,
I don't know. You gotta go do, I don't care. Like, I think we put our own weight on things, right? About what's actually important. And then, when you get older, you realize, why does it matter if you hang out with me every April 12th?
Right.
If I see you every October 12th, that's the same. Or
if you celebrate the birthday before or after the trip, or give them a party and a presents.
It doesn't. You're a week late. Oh, my life is over.
Right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, I'm not a big... my aunt and I, a couple years ago, she was kind of like, well, I see you a couple times a year, but it's not on like holidays and stuff. And I was kind of like, well,
now you kind of understand.
But I still see you.
Yeah.
And why does it matter if it's
Yeah.
this time or this.
I agree.
And she
that
kind of went like,
stuff. Yeah.
she kind of went like, well, I mean, yeah, that's a good point.
That's because
it's never been an issue.
Right, because I live in Arizona and my family lives in Seattle still, and it's like I don't want to go back to Seattle for Christmas, so I'm like, I'll see you in the summer.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think
Why
it's the same.
go back
counts?
there?
Yeah.
It's awful in the winter.
But so, anyways, back to your to your dad. So I just remember when I was younger, I was feeling like I was always in the shadow of my brother and sister. They're always like, "Oh, you're Megan's little brother. You're Andy's brother." Like, oh wow, like they were so. Did you ever get that with like, "Oh, you're Bob Rivers' kid," like, and you just want to be Andrew, right? Yeah.
I think
does that get annoying? Because that's got to be a different level. Because that was just like my town of Issaquah, but I mean, your dad was known.
But I had the same thing. I had the same thing with my brother. Even you know what I mean?
Keith?
My brother was 2 years older than me, and he was cool. And so you're Keith's little brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got plenty of that too.
Interesting.
But then like even teachers would be like, "Oh, your dad is Bob," and like I remember with one guy, this math teacher in middle school, every single day I would walk past his room and he'd be like, "I listened to your dad this morning," and I'd be like, "Yeah, okay."
It's kind of
a lot of people did.
Annoying, or was it?
I mean, it was fine. It wasn't like annoying. He didn't really know how to process it as a kid,
Right.
The thing I've joked about now is that like I used to think his songs were kind of like corny and like be embarrassed by them.
Oh, okay.
But now as a guy who writes my own jokes, I go, they're really well done. Like they're really good.
Yeah.
They're clever and they're not like hacky. Like he's not, like even his show was not like, it's Zip and Bob, bow, boo, and they're hitting buzzers and they're, morning radio.
It's very genuine.
It was great.
And down to earth.
And so I think those things influence my comedy even to be like,
right.
I'm not going to do, I don't do a lot of bells and whistles on stage. It's genuine. I like that word.
No, that's, because he said that when you guys were younger, if you and your brother would get mad at your dad, he'd just kind of make fun of you. Yeah. And then that would kind of disarm it.
Yeah.
Like you're just laughing so hard that you...
Well, my brother was always the confrontational one. He was angry, and I was quiet and like, I'm just going to watch his mistakes and figure this out, So there was one time he was like getting in an argument with my dad at the dinner table, and we had just watched Congo.
I remember that about gorillas. Yeah, I remember that.
And so...
That would be about coronavirus, but...
And so my dad goes, my brother's like standing up, and my dad goes, "Me big gorilla, me big gorilla." Oh, he's beating his chest, and I'm like just dying. And then my brother's trying to stay mad, and then because he's subtly using humor to be like, "Oh, you're primal kind of you're a big gorilla. Oh, you're gonna fight me. Right. You're gonna challenge me. After you watch like apes fight and it was kind of like smart, it was pretty well done. And you go like, and what's funny is to bring that even full circle. Like I was hanging with my nieces in LA last couple days, and their nanny. I'm hanging out with the nanny and the kids, and we're all playing. And the 5-year-old is mad because there's only one Elsa doll. And then the nanny goes, "Oh, well, here's like a blonde girl," and she's like, "Well, that's Cinderella." And she's like, "Oh, cool," because you never pretend that something is something that it isn't, that's all the kids do is go, "Hey, pretend I'm a lion," and then they crawl around. Yeah. "Hey, pretend I'm a seal," or whatever. Pretend I'm the mommy and you're the daddy. Like that's what kids do. Yeah. And like the kid is like slowly being like, "Oh yeah, like it's blonde, it's a chick, it could just be whoever I want it to be," and like. But she's still not ready to admit that she lost, Yeah. So she's like crying and kicking stuff, and the nanny goes, "Okay, well we'll just be over here if you want to come play." And
she's
then
good with kids.
and then like 2 minutes later, the kid is like, "Okay, I'll be Elsa," and it's like, oh my!
They have short memories.
And I was like watching this, like this is magical.
Yeah.
But it's the same skills that you do when they're 15 as when they're 5.
Right.
And when they're 35, Yeah. You find yourself getting defensive, and you're like, "I don't want to play." Oh, it's fucking. He's being a child.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then, your dad was an influence on your comedy. He actually took you to a comedy show, and there was comedians all around, because of his radio show and stuff. So he took you to, when you were 13, he took you to see Stephen Wright, who's one of my favorite
Absolutely.
comedians. Now, granted, I didn't get into him
Sure.
until I was in college. So you were 13. You're like, you didn't get it. Like, you didn't think he was that funny,
So
right?
he tells like very
Dry.
yeah,
since
dry humor, like monotone. One of my favorite jokes is I just installed a skylight in my apartment. The people who live above me are furious. And at the show, I remember a specific joke where he goes, "Yeah, I was wandering up to one of your tall buildings in Seattle and decided I was going to kill myself. So I jumped off. I accidentally did a triple backflip and landed on my feet. And as I was walking away, I saw one alley cat say to the other, 'See, that's how it's done.'" Just so absurd. And so I'm like, what the fuck is this? As like a 13-year-old, I don't have the mental capacity to really like process it.
Was that your first comedian that you had seen live?
Maybe.
Okay.
It might have been.
So that wasn't
we used to watch like Jay Leno every night,
sure.
but I don't know if that. It would be fun to try to find the timeline.
Yeah.
Because that was like.
But that wasn't the moment where you decided, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. It was
we got to meet him.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
And he like pokes his head out a side door and he goes, there's like 15 little, adults.
So was he like that in real life?
Yeah,
he
was just chill. Like he was very like, "Hey, how's it going?" Thanks, yeah.
Like, have you ever seen that movie Half Baked that he's in where he plays the guy on the couch?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
More active, a little more active.
Okay.
It's a funny movie.
Yeah.
And so fucking, I'm a little kid, so he kind of looks at me and he's like, "Hey, buddy, Chap, did you enjoy the show or whatever?" I don't think he said that. I'm just exaggerating. And
that's a funny word.
And I go, "I have a question. Are you on drugs?" And he laughed and he goes, "No, I'm not on drugs." And then I was like, "Oh, okay."
What made you think of that?
I don't know. I just thought, like, why is he so weird? You know what I mean? Like, he's fucking weird.
Yeah.
And so I was like 13. I thought, it must be drugs or something. You know what? So then a couple years later, I met him again. I was like 16 or something, and I kind of got it now.
Right.
And I was like, "Hey, this is really embarrassing." But a couple years ago, I was like a little kid, and I met you, and he goes, "And you asked if I was on drugs." Yeah, he remembers me.
Holy shit.
He goes, "I remember you." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry." He goes, "Nah, it's pretty funny." It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so then we talked about the high school class, but then you graduated high school, then you went to the Art Institute of Seattle.
Correct.
I think that's cool that your dad let you go there. My dad, I wanted to go to the Art Institute.
Oh, really?
My dad's like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, he actually called their office and was like,
"Don't listen
and then
to
he's
his
like,
phone calls."
I talked to this lady that works there, and I asked her like, what happens to the people that graduate from the Art Institute? Because I want to do something with music, and he was saying that the lady told him that, well, a lot of them end up like working at record stores and stuff like that. So my dad's like, I'm not going to pay for that. But you got a job in marketing, correct?
Sure, yeah.
And so you did that for a while, but then in 2009, you lost your job at a marketing agency.
Correct.
And people suggested that you do comedy because of the stories you would tell, and also you did a really good speech at your brother's wedding.
Wow, in-depth research.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the speech or any of the jokes from that?
Yeah. I remember the gist of it. It was about it's my older brother, and he's always looking out for me, and it's basically a rule of 3, but I didn't know it was like a rule.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was like a thing.
You did all these things that
I had
but you didn't.
Yeah, I had a joke about basically like all the terrible things my brother did to me. Like one time we were at my parents' softball game, and he was swinging the bat, and he hit me because I was walking behind him, and he's just swinging the bat, and I happened to walk, and he hit me in the face. And I just had a giant black eye for a month, But it was my fault because I was standing too close, and my brother was there to let me know that was my fault, Yeah. And then one time, it was midnight, and he was driving me home, and we lived at the end of this like 2-mile dirt road through the woods, and he dropped me off. at the end of the driveway because he was on his way to a girl's house, but that was my fault for asking for a ride. Like that was.
So you're basically roasting him at his wedding.
Yeah. So I was like, "That was my fault. I shouldn't have asked for a ride," and he's there to let me know because he's. So I just want to say that I'm against this marriage from the beginning, and if anything goes wrong, it is not my fault, and I can't be held responsible. Whatever.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty funny.
I mean, it could have gone either way.
Now
it's a risk.
Now that I look at it, I'm like, why did you think that was going to be funny?
Yeah.
But apparently there's tension at a wedding.
Sure.
So if you can relieve that,
that's true.
Because it's kind of scientifically comedy is like just releasing the tension. Because people are like, where's he going with this?
Right.
That's pretty funny. But so that was kind of the speech. And then I remember sitting next to my dad at the table, and everyone was walking by going like, that was amazing, you're hilarious, oh my gosh. And I just remember like the look in his eyes, like, that's my boy, I was like, those are the hugs I never got, like that was kind of what it was.
Yeah. And
then that was August. I think October I got laid off from my job, and and because everyone was like, you should do comedy, and I was like, whatever, I got a job. And my dad, because his dad was like, you're never gonna make any money spinning records, to him, he kind of did the same thing to me, where he was like, you gotta get a job.
Oh, he did the same thing. Interesting. He didn't try to
early on. I think like from an early age, he was like, you gotta get benefits, and you gotta get this, and you gotta get health insurance, and that's the main thing you want. And you don't think about health insurance as a kid because you're like, I'm just invincible.
Right.
But so I think I was like, well, I don't know. But I got that job at the marketing agency. So I was like, well, I'm doing good. I got benefits and a salary, and like I'm doing good. Why would I just do comedy? That seems weird. But then I got laid off, and the funny story that I kept telling everybody is that I had an interview at a bigger agency, and this is like a month after I got laid off. So like almost immediately, I had a lead on a job, and they call me up and they go, we're gonna do a phone interview. It'll be like 10, 15 minutes. I'm on the phone with a guy for like 40 minutes. I'm killing it. And at the end of the interview, he's like, I think you're like the best guy for this job. We just want to bring you in and make sure you get along with everybody. And I'm like, cool. And he goes like, how much salary do you want to make? And I learned a trick from my dad, which is to lie and say like, well, I was making 35, so I'd like to stay around there. Because then when they offer you 32, it's like, oh, I was only making 30 the whole time. So let me just make. So
you had this interview. It's a bigger company.
Interview. Yeah. So I'm like, do I need to bring my resume? Anything? He's like, no, we got it. I show up. I'm in the lobby for like an hour. And then this lady comes and gets me. He's like, the guy who was supposed to interview had a family emergency, so he's leaving. So I'm going to do the interview. Do you have your resume and everything? I'm like, oh, no, I swear. He told me not to bring it. And they told me. And she's like, oh, that's fine, whatever. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm already losing points. But then we sit down. It's kind of awkward. She doesn't know what to ask me. I don't know what to answer. And I'm like, she wasn't supposed to do this. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So then in an interview, she goes, so is your brother Keith? And I go, oh, yeah, you know Keith? She's like, how's he doing? I heard the story, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he's great. He just got married. And she's like, tell him I said hi. I haven't talked to him. I'm like, that could be good. And then I call my brother, and he's like, yeah, you're not getting that job.
Because it was like an ex-girlfriend or something?
He just had a one-night stand with this girl.
Oh, one-night stand. Not
Never
even
called her.
Ooh,
and then she's like, how is he? I'm like, oh, he just got married to the love of his life, and he's good. It's perfect. It's great. Yeah, so I could tell people that story, and people were like, "It's pretty funny."
Yeah,
you know. And then my dad eventually was kind of like, just kind of going like, "Get out, just go do anything, just like go do something." I think what happened is, I think my dad was taught. I just remember this right now. I think, but my dad was on air probably talking about me losing my job, and someone called in. They worked for like Oric, like the ant spraying, the bug spray company or whatever. And they were like, yeah, I mean, we give him a job. It's pretty good benefits and salary. And I think my dad was like, hey, you can follow this lead or whatever. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that, And he's like, well, you got to do something. Why don't you just go out and do, the old thing they say is like, just try a bunch of things, because then if you try something you don't like, now you're closer to finding something you do like, you know, and at least you know.
It's like dating too.
Yes, yeah.
Numbers game.
And but you found the one now, yeah. And it's a shiny ring in the backpack over there. Fucking with you. Just trying to make you uncomfortable. Unfazed. So he goes,
I'm in the zone right now.
Yeah, he goes, why don't you try comedy or something? They have open mic at Giggles. And I was like, oh yeah, that was fun. And so I invited everybody I knew, and I went up, and like, it was pretty bad, but but everyone was laughing at. They were laughing at me, not with me necessarily.
That works.
Yeah,
it counts.
It was like, yeah. It's not what you want, but it was close.
I mean, you kind of have to do both, right? One, now that you've actually done it, you're basically a professional comedian. I mean, you do it for a living. Now, don't you sometimes, you kind of get both, right? Like you do things.
I just mean they weren't laughing where I wanted them to laugh.
Okay,
like,
I guess.
Like I would like tell a joke, and then they wouldn't do that well, and then I would say something after that, like, "Well, that didn't go well," and then they would laugh at that, kind of.
Like you making self-deprecating humor. Yeah. That's the best kind of humor.
And so I kind of was like, but you don't know the difference at the beginning, right? So I was like, I'm getting laughs,
Yeah, there you go.
And
so
I just kept going.
You kept going, and then so it's a grind, right?
Yeah.
So like there was one time where you lived in a house in San Francisco with 6 other comedians, and one guy was like sleeping in the closet, and you said the mess got so bad that you actually lied, and you said, I found another place, guys, and then you went and slept in your car for 2 days.
Yeah. I was just crashing at their place, and it was like 6 comedians, and rent is so high, and none of us make any money, so they were like, we need to do something, And there was like, there's like a closet like this, and like the stairwell goes above it kind of thing, and the dude was just like with a little single mattress renting that out for like whatever.
Like he was actually, and that wasn't just for like a few nights.
No,
it's like his home.
That was like his room. I don't know, man.
Wow.
But I remember like being on a couch upstairs, and there was like a bowl of like melted ice cream from like a couple days ago, and there was like bugs in it. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? I found another spot. And I just went and slept in my car.
Wow. So that was kind of a theme. You actually did a local, not a national, but it was a local Toyota commercial.
Yep.
It was pretty funny. It's like I think it was your dad was in it, right? And then he said something about your son, and then you get out of the car, like, because he said like it's also his home or something.
Yeah.
Like,
he goes, in your best commercial, we love Toyota, because Toyota of Puyallup, they're safe cars, and my son drives all over the world as a comedian. It's not just a car, it's also his home. And then he opens the door, and then I pop out in a sleeping bag, and I'm like, hi.
So that was actually like life, or an pretty fun life.
Yeah. And I helped them write the joke a little bit, but then the commercial aired, and some lady got mad. She's like, I was living in my car, and I am offended. And they're like, well, it's a joke, and I also lived in my car.
Yeah, you made the commercial after you had moved through that phase in your life, though, or?
No. I mean, I was like, like
you literally were still living in your car.
When? Let's see, what time did that commercial? I'd have to look at the time. Yeah, time of that. It
was close.
I got a house. Yes, funny. My parents bought me a house 4 years ago. Because like I was living in like Craigslist houses and stuff like that. Oh. And what happened is they saved a bunch of money for me, that they were like, hey, this is to pay for your wedding and a honeymoon and a down payment on a house someday. And then I became a comedian, and they're like, well, you're not going to get married anytime soon because no one's going to love you. What? So they didn't say that part, but that's what they believe. The point was, like, as they saved it for me.
Yeah.
And so they were like, the thing you need is a house.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
And so it was really nice for them. And it's like a condo, so I still have
nice.
monthly dues. Like I still pay rent basically. And so I'm still like having to be responsible.
Sure.
It's just a much nicer house for the amount of money I could get with it.
Because living in your car's got to be dangerous, especially in San Francisco. It's funny because my car got broken into in San Francisco. I can't imagine if someone tries to break in your car and you're in it, then it's got to be an awkward...
I've never had that happen. I know a guy who lived in a van that had that happen.
Oh,
Dave Stone is a funny comedian from Atlanta, and he's got a story about that. The closest I got was my buddy and I were doing a podcast right before I was about to drive around the country, and he's like, "Don't you get worried about people trying to like break into your car?" And I was like, "No, I don't really worry about it. I just stay at rest stops and stuff like that." And then I pulled off. I pulled off at a rest stop, and this is like 8 hours later. I'm driving. Pull up at a rest stop, and I'm like, let's take a little nap here. And I see a guy walking around with like a hook for a hand, and he's like, literally, he's like the groundskeeper for some reason.
Okay.
But he's like, he's got garbage bags and he's putting leaves in it, and I'm
like a slasher movie.
Yeah, I'm like, this is every horror movie beginning. I'm not falling for this, and I just go down to the next rest area. Okay. There was another one too. I was in Wisconsin, and I pulled in for the night. And I'm hanging out, and I'm like getting comfortable, and I kind of just like looking around to like wind down, and I see a guy who's like putting stuff in his car, and then he's like looking around all shady, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna keep my eyes on this guy. And then he looks towards me, and we just make eye contact, and I'm like, I'm not looking away, like I don't know. And I don't even know if he's looking at me or, but there's like definitely, he just stares at me for like 5 seconds, and he looks away and he puts some stuff in his car, and he gets in his car, and I go, yeah, no thanks, I'm gonna go to the next rest area. So I've done that a few times where I see something I'm not vibing, and like, it's gonna be 20 more minutes, 30 more minutes.
Yeah.
My friend used to do it, and he would always sleep in gas station parking lots. He thought that was safer. But I liked the quietness of a rest area.
Yeah. And there's probably truckers doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But then you had a weekly comedy show. This is interesting. At Hooters.
Yep.
I didn't know they did comedy show. Did you just come in and say, hey, can I do a comedy show here? Or what?
It's funny. I kind of got the gig through my dad. As I would go into my dad's station once a week. It was like another open mic for me.
Yeah.
And I would like do jokes on the air, and they would make fun of me, and they'd be like, you're bad. And, but one day I was there, and this brand new Hooters casino was opening up in Seattle, and they were like promoting it on the show, and like the general manager he and I kind of talk, and he's like, you're a comedian? And I was like, why don't we put together a comedy show for, and he was like, that's not a bad idea. And so it kind of went full circle, like nepotism-ish, where like I happened to be there. I kind of like approached the guy about like, hey, what about a comedy show? And he was like, that's a good idea. And then they would promote it on the radio. Oh. So they would like buy ads on my dad's station, and then I get to host it kind of. Yeah. Even though we all kind of did our part in it. Sure. And then I would host the show, and it was weekly, and then after like maybe like 3 months, they changed it to like monthly. And then and then the casino went out of business.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was a Hooters in a casino. Yeah. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then, so then you traveled.
Well, it was actually like the same. It was like a Hooters casino.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they have one of those in Vegas.
They had like a restaurant only section, but they also just had like card games and stuff like that.
But yeah, so then you've done comedy all over the country and the world. Yeah. You grinded. You're doing a lot of shows. Then you finally. You get this special through Dry Bar Comedy called Laffy Taffy, and 3 of the videos from that special reached over 1 million views, correct?
There's actually 5.
5 now, okay.
I just, there's 2 of them that I'm not like, they're like okay jokes. I guess there's only 3 videos that I still watch and go, that was pretty good. I guess it's all fine.
Anything that gets 1 million, I feel it's got to be somewhat funny.
But this is the thing, like Facebook kind of faked those views. There's the story about it. Right, because
people could watch it for 1 second and then click it off, and then that counts as a view, right?
And so and I think they were exaggerating it, maybe, is the story that came out. But, because like Funny or Die moved from like YouTube to Facebook, and then they went out of business. and like it's really interesting. There's kind of articles about that, but anyway, even though, even if it wasn't 15 million, maybe it's actually 10 or whatever, but there's a good amount of views on them, and I'm very famous. And you got the point.
Yes, you got 10,000 followers on Instagram. That's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot more than mine.
So these Mormon people call me up and they're like, "Do you want to do a special? It's got to be clean, blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds scary. I don't want to do it." And then a friend of mine did it, Billy Anderson, who's a comedian who is a little younger than me, I guess, in terms of like career wise.
Okay.
And I was like, and wasn't, I've told Billy this story too, but I was like, if this guy can do one, then what am I doing? And then I filmed it, but I didn't know it was going to be like a thing, I didn't know it was going to get 1 million views.
Yeah.
I thought like, 6 Mormon kids will see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's probably not that much clean comedy out there for Mormons.
Right.
So it's probably hard to work on that material, right? You're like, oh, nope, can't do that joke. Nope, can't do this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always written kind of clean anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that hard.
Oh, that's good.
It was more of like, what specifically do they know? Like sometimes like a word where you say like hell.
Oh.
Like give them hell. Even that is like, they go like, oh, I mean, we'll allow it, but you're gonna get flagged. You know? So they have like a list basically
filters
so they go like, you're like a Mormon boy, you want to watch Game of Thrones but you're offended by nudity, you just select like no nudity.
Okay.
And then you watch the other 13 minutes of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So
13 minutes.
They have that.
That made my girlfriend laugh.
That's good. They had that for comedy now because they got sued by Disney because you can't just like steal people's movies and charge people to watch them. Hey, we cut out all the good parts.
Yeah, right.
And so
interesting.
But I just started getting royalty checks from them.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
Only took like 2 years, but
that's a great.
But that's nice. It'll be a little bonus.
Yeah,
a little bit every year.
Yeah. I saw this thing that you posted online. I thought this was really cool. You have, instead of getting like autographs or selfies, you have a notebook that it has all these famous comedians from Larry the Cable Guy to Bob Newhart, Bob Saget, Sam Morrill. He's one of my newer favorites.
That's great.
Literally almost every comic has signed this and give you invite. What a great idea. Like, where did you get that idea? And what are some of the most memorable things that comedians wrote? I saw one person wrote, this is actually really funny. She wrote, "This is a worthless idea," or something like that. Yeah. Who was that? I couldn't read the writing.
I don't remember. Okay. Let's see. So I started comedy. And I was hanging out at Laughs Comedy Club in Kirkland all the time. And Dave Dennison was the guy.
Dave Dennison, that's what I used to go there all the one in Bellevue, and it was in a hotel room.
Yeah, really?
That's where I used to see Fahim.
Yeah, okay,
I used to see him like every week. It was crazy.
So that was like my home club, and I lived 2 miles up the road there. Yeah. And it was my first weekend hosting, and Tom Simmons was the headliner, and I... all weekend he's going like, oh, you kind of do this if you and oh, keep an eye out for this and whatever. And I was getting all this advice, and I was like, this is really good, but it's also like overwhelming. How am I going to remember this stuff? And I was like, I should write some of this stuff down.
There you go.
And I thought like, okay. So I went to like Office Depot, and I was like looking for little notebooks, and I was like, it's got to be like small. It's got to be like, I got to be able to carry it with me. So I found this like small one. And then I was thinking, like, on the way home, I was like, okay, well, like, do I just, like, go, like, what were the things you said? Or, like, how do we... And the idea just evolved into, like, why don't I just have him write it down?
There you go, yeah.
And then he signs it, and then it's, like, whatever you think is most important, then that's great. Cool. Or even in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it started. And then it evolved into just like, I was like, this is kind of cool. And then after a couple years of like, there's like 40 pages. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. And
you still do that?
Yeah. So, well, the tough thing is that I don't work with a lot of these headliners anymore because I'm headlining or I'm doing my own tour or whatever. So I don't run into like a lot of comics that I'm like, aside from like in LA or like in New York, which I don't feel is like an appropriate. Like I talked to Jim Gaffigan briefly like a month ago, because we happen to be doing sets on the same show.
Oh.
But like, there was no like camaraderie of like,
sure.
hey, let's hang out for a bit. You know, when you're
Right.
doing a club weekend with somebody, it's like you're stuck there. You're in the green room. You've got downtime. You've got, you know, maybe they want to talk to you, maybe they don't. But you know, there's at least like a more of an interaction than like 15 minutes of like, oh hey, how's it going?
Right. Yeah.
You know, because he's assuming
and he's a bigger name,
and he's assuming like I'm on this. And the other thing is like I'm on a level that's like, it's not that I don't need advice or that I need to put the book down. Someone wrote that in my book. Like you've graduated, put the book down. It was a nice thing. It was actually, nice, but it was also like, well, I'm never done learning.
That's true. Yeah. So, no, definitely don't.
And I would love to have Gaffigan sign it, but cool. I go like, does it feel appropriate at this moment? You know, so that's kind of what I judge it on.
That's good.
A friend of mine who lives in Salt Lake City is a newer comedian. And just the other day, like a couple months ago, actually, a couple days in comedy time, and he wanted to start his own book. So he hit me up and he goes, "Do you mind if I copy your idea?" And I go, "No, that's cool." And he goes, "Why don't you be the first page?"
Oh.
And so I wrote a little thing, and I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but yeah, so
cool.
So now he's at the stage I am, where he's every week at a club watching a guy going, "Will you sign this thing?" Yeah. And so I think if we combine books eventually,
you'll have everything.
But I want to publish it, and this is the thing. Like, I think I need to bug my managers more instead of like waiting for them to be like, "Hey, Andrew, you got anything on the shelf?" I'll be like, "Oh, I have, a book." You know,
you have to reach out to them. I have to bother. Hey, I want to do this. How do I make it happen?
Yeah, because I was just. I just ran into my manager the other day in LA, and he was at my showcase or whatever, and I had this idea for like a comedy television show, like with like comedians or whatever, and like we just had a car ride home for like 8 minutes, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he goes, "That's great. Come to New York and let's do it sometime. Like let's try it out live and see if it works, and then if it works, we'll like push it to TV or whatever."
Nice.
Like a proof of concept thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, great. I should have just told you that 2 years ago when I thought of it, you know, instead of being like, let me wait for the moment, you know." But there is a delicacy to like even bothering those guys for me. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you had the web series, Don't Quit Your Night Job, which is a great idea for a show, because what you did is, instead of quitting your night job as a comedian, you practice and get taught, or you try to act as this occupation for, you know, a few hours or whatever it is. Like with the first one you did, it was so cool because as a Seahawks fan, you got to hang out with Jon Ryan and punt the ball. He taught you how to punt. You caught the ball. You did punt returning. Dropped a couple, but you know, you're like, because on TV you're like, how could that guy drop it? But like, I mean, it's harder to get them all.
So I remember. Brian Walters, does that name ring a bell?
Oh, yes.
He's the white guy on the Seahawks.
White guy on the Seahawks punt returner. He used to punt return,
and he would catch it and then fall 3 yards later. Every time. But Pete Carroll kept being like, well, he just catches the ball, and that's the main thing we want. He you know. That's and at the time, you're like, what are you talking about? Every guy tries to run it back 15 yards. It's not that difficult. How hard can it be to catch a ball? And then... So I remember yelling at the TV, like, I can do better than that guy. And then I remember an article about Sam Cooke, a punter from Baltimore, and they were going, he's got a golf club full of swings, basically. So, like, for punting...
Like, do different angles.
He can make it knuckleball, he can make it curve, he can make it go super high and low, and he can do whatever he wants with it. And so, once I read that, I was like, oh, wow, there's, like, way more... to this thing than I thought there was.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's like the least important job on field. You know what I mean? Like arguably.
Sort of. Yeah, it can be.
Least respected, maybe.
But it could be.
But it could be disastrous.
If you fumble it, then that's the nightmare.
Over.
So,
So I thought like, what happened is I opened for Sarah Colonna, who Jon Ryan is married to.
Oh, that's right. She's a comedian.
And
he's kind of he's American
like a road,
Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. And he's like a road groupie, so he'll come hang out with her on her weekends.
That's awesome.
And so I was at Spokane Comedy Club, and I met him, and I thought like, I was like trying not to be like all, you know, I'm like more... I'm like more excited to meet a punter than a famous comedian. You know? Like, you're great too, Sarah, but your husband plays football. my favorite team.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, but he's like cool. We're like playing Madden and making jokes, and we're like,
no, it was funny,
and it was really funny. So then, he had an autograph signing in Renton, and I lived like 10 minutes away, and it was like $20. And so I showed up, and I went to Kinko's, and I got a picture of him falling in his face when he broke his nose.
Oh, that was
like
bad.
A Minnesota game. So I got this thing. I got like a big poster signed that was him falling on his face. So I showed up to his autograph signing with a picture of him falling on his face.
Did anyone else?
I go, hey, will you sign this for me? And he's like, you're an asshole. And he just laughed. And he thought it was so funny.
That was funny.
So he signed it, and we took a photo, and I go, hey man, I have an idea for like a funny video where like you kick punts to me and see if I can catch him. And he was like, that sounds funny.
Yeah.
And I go, do you want to film that sometime? And he goes, yeah. Here's my number. He's like, I'm kind of like, it's off season right now, but once I get he goes, I'll give you we'll do it in like October or whatever. I forget.
Oh, he wants to do it during.
No, it wasn't. I forget. It was not during. It was like during the summer, but it was like it was something like it was like I don't remember
before training.
It was like in the middle of training camp.
Okay.
He was kind of like, hey, yeah, because I remember he joked. He goes, or he said, yeah, I'll be done with work at 1, and then I'll come meet you. And I'm like,
there you go.
You work. Yeah, you just call work. You're like, I'm at the office today.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
it's a job.
And so, because I call comedy like, hey, I gotta go to work.
Right.
I say that all the time, and people are like, you don't have a job. I'm like, I do have a job.
Right.
But anyway, he was so cool, and then we did a couple more, and I want to start it again.
Yeah, I liked my favorite one was I think the homeless one.
Yeah.
Which was maybe it was funny because I don't want. Well, I'm gonna give it away. I guess. But
it's fine.
Fast forward to this if you want to watch it. But it is funny. But yeah, because I think one of the funniest parts is you see somebody and they're like, Andrew? And you're like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. So the premise is basically I have seen people like begging for money on the street,
so
and I thought like, hey, what if I'm actually offering something?
Yeah, you're giving your CD away.
I thought I'd like sell a CD for like $5 or $10 or best offer.
Or donation,
I kept like writing the sign and being like, it was $10 and then it was like $5 or best offer. And it was like, whatever. Yeah. And then, so I stood on the street. I like found a guy who was like homeless kind of. And I could interview. The thing was, I would always
pretty normal. I was like, why is this guy homeless?
He was a little drugged out, you know.
Okay.
Some people were like, look at his pupils, they're fucking.
Yeah, he did look. That's true.
He was whacked out on something, but
looked like he could have been in a rock band or something.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't. He was like, I got a girlfriend, and like I sometimes stay at her place, and I'm like,
and he's like critiquing you. He's like, he did all right over there. He's got some good skills.
My homeless
it was hilarious.
It's the same thing as Jon Ryan, man. Like your punting skills are terrible.
But it's a homeless guy critiquing your panhandling skills.
And so my best friend's ex-wife happened to be driving by, and she was like, she sent a text to my buddy, and was like, "What is Andrew doing on the side of the road?" And he's like, "I don't know." And then she just pulled up, and she goes, "Andrew," and I go, "Oh my god."
Yeah. Did you have to get waivers for those people or no?
I mean, like, what do you mean? Oh, to like
the people driving through it.
I don't know. What
do you complain? Yeah.
I'm not selling it. It's just on YouTube for free.
No, no. And then some guy got mad at you.
Another homeless guy. Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you're a white boy over there. You're stealing all my business."
Yeah. He goes, "I would be making half the money if I was white," and I was like, "I haven't made anything. I've made like $10." Yeah. And he goes, "Go kiss your boyfriend." Yeah. I'm like, I go, "No, I don't have a boyfriend." He goes, I go, "Do you have a boyfriend?" He goes, I go, "That's okay. If you do," he goes, "That's on you. I got a lady, and her name's Mariah Carey."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I was like, man, Nick Cannon has really fallen on hard times.
Yeah, that guy had some hard times. But,
I mean, it's fun.
And then somebody got mad at you because they're like saying that you shouldn't be doing this. And like, no, I'm doing this for comedy. And she's like, that's even worse. That was a great one. But
she kept being like, "I'm so sad for you." I'm like, "I'm not actually homeless." And she's like, "That's even worse." It's pretty brutal.
So you said you have some other TV and film work in the works or anything. You said you went in LA for an audition.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I did an audition in New York in December for the Jimmy Fallon show.
Oh.
It's just the start of that process to like get on their radar. And like keep seeing them and being like, "Hey, fucking let's go," And my manager goes like, my last client that showcased got on the Tonight Show 10 months later.
Oh,
and I was
wow,
like, is that an accurate timeline? And he goes, yeah, that's pretty.
Well, one of the I can't remember if it was Mike Kaplan. One of them told me that the person that is in charge of like booking those people, like she or he remembered them, and they, as soon as they got the job, they called him up and said, "Hey, yeah, I've always been a fan of your comedy, and I just got this job. So do you want to come on Conan or whatever it was?" So so you never know when you get. They could be 10 months later.
So it's what it is Michael Cox is the guy who books the Tonight Show, and he shows up and he brings a crew and a camera and they record it, and then I don't know what the process is after that. It's all mysterious, but I like talk to him and meet him and go, "Hey, what the fuck, man? Put me on."
Yeah, that's cool.
But then in Los Angeles was I just did a Just for Laughs audition, which is the Just for Laughs.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah.
Festival in Montreal.
And you were on some show called, I think was it called Laughs, that was like syndicated in certain cities or something like that?
There was a show on Fox called Laughs, and it was on at like 1 a.m. or something like that in like 13 cities.
Oh, that's pretty good.
But it's fine.
Yeah, it's some exposure. Yeah, it helps. Yeah, so you were saying earlier like, oh, you don't do good with the ladies or whatever, but I just saw.
I never said that.
Oh, you didn't say. What did you say? So you made some joke, but no, I just saw this on your Instagram the other day that. Or no, actually, let's talk about this one first. So an anonymous woman once left you a phone, her phone number on the back of a business card, and it just said Lily and big tits and a phone number. So, and then you've been hit on some men too. So like, does this stuff happen a lot? Like,
not as much as I wanted to. Yeah, I mean, over the years, it's, broken clocks, lucky here and there. Yeah, what happened was a lot of times it's a friend of the person being like, "You guys should date too." Like they're already hooked up and they're like trying to hook up their friend. So like
there's a lot of like bachelorette parties and stuff that go out to comedy
Lily
shows.
Big Tits was like her friend wrote it basically.
Oh, okay.
And then they both came by and she was like, "Here you go," and she's like, "Stop it, oh my god." It's probably usually like a girl goes like, "He's kind of cute," and she goes, "I'm gonna give him your number." "No, you don't do that." "No, I'm gonna write it down." That's kind of I think what happens. But yeah, I mean, you can follow up on some of those leads,
Those leads, I like it. Yeah, I just saw this. A woman asked you to sign her breasts.
Yeah,
recently. So I have to say,
her boyfriend. It was her boyfriend's idea.
Okay,
it's very awkward. And she was like, "Nah, get a full, just grab all of it." And I was like, "I don't know if I really want to do that," like. Yeah.
I'm you to grab.
Well, she was like, because I was trying to like get the pen right. It's it's not a flat surface there. It's a little difficult,
right,
on a good one. And so I was kind of like trying to get my. I had to like bend down, so I'm trying to like find my balance also. And I kind of put my hand on like the side of her boob, and she's like, "Oh, you can go grab whatever you need." And
I think she said that. Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's fine. This is fine. And then
So I thought it'd be funny since I've become a fan of your comedy.
Oh wow!
Would you sign my breast?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
We have Dana here to film this. In this seedy motel. This is not weird at all.
Yeah.
I didn't have a felt pen. Okay. So I got a ballpoint. So be gentle.
I should like giving a permanent tattoo or something.
Yeah, no, okay. How do we do this?
I don't know.
I don't know. This is the first one.
You want to get a little closer?
Yeah.
Feel it.
This is not weird at all.
Don't show my pillow. Whatever you do, don't look at that.
Okay. I'm just kidding. Don't want to get the nipple. This is a family show.
Oh boy. Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, it works out pretty good actually.
Draw a little heart there.
Look at that.
There we go.
Woo! That's going to be worth money someday. I'm never washing that boob again. So
you're going to have to wait a long time for that to be worth anything.
Oh, no. Come on now. You're a rising star, bro.
15 million views.
15 million. That's insane.
People
I don't
share anything.
That's a big number. That's a big number.
It's a lot.
Oh, okay. So another thing, another video that I wanted to do, because you did a web series, The Magician.
Yes.
You learned a magic trick.
Yes.
Can you teach me the magic trick, or at least do the magic trick for me? I have. Did you have to have a?
I don't know what I
need. Is it a special handkerchief, or can you use any handkerchief?
So I'll tell you how it's done, but I have to have a fake thumb for it.
You have to. That's what it is.
Trick. Yeah. You have a fake thumb.
Oh, so we can't do it then.
No.
Bummer. I should have warned you ahead of time.
No, it's all right. So you get a fake thumb, and you go like, oh,
Yeah.
and then you stuff it in a fake thumb. And what you do is you have the fake thumb in here.
Okay.
And you would be like, I'm going to stick this handkerchief in here. And then on the last one, you make it a thumb.
Oh, that's how they
and
do
you pull
that.
it off, and then you go, wow.
And it doesn't look like
over here.
Like an orange thumb on your...
It does if you're, unless you're good at it. I mean, there's angles. There's really good angles. Like, if you kind of hold your fingers like this, you can't really see it. So that's why a lot of it's like this, Like, they try to angle it.
You try to, like... see? Okay, yeah.
They'll kind of go like, oh. Because, like, depending on what you're looking at, you're like, oh.
So that's how they do that handkerchief, because I've seen other magicians do that, so we just gave it away. We're probably going to get some death threats from magicians now, right? Aren't they pretty serious about that kind of stuff?
There's the one I did in the bar. How do you do it even? It was, like, with coins.
Oh, do you have a coin?
It was like... I couldn't even do it. I tell you what, those skills are in hibernation.
I mean, it really is. That's another tough one. Yeah, okay.
The card tricks, if you have cards, I could probably do a card thing.
Oh, crap, I didn't bring any cards.
It's all right.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
I was really had my heart set on that handkerchief one.
Sorry.
But
That's such a disappointment.
Yeah, no,
I'll
bring my fake thumb next time. Awesome. So let's see, what else can we talk about? So many things. You've worked with so many comedians and celebrities, like from Christopher Titus to, literally almost every famous comedian. And then you met Seahawks. Besides Jon Ryan, you met Richard Sherman, Richard Simmons, Hulk Hogan, Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
What were some of the most memorable people that you've met over the years?
It was fun to. I worked on a roast of the Seahawks, basically.
Oh yeah.
And so meeting like Richard Sherman was great, and I chased him down to say goodbye and get a photo, he's like catching an Uber. Cause on this one, I just got hired as a writer. I was already booked at another show, so I couldn't perform on the roast, but they wanted me to write jokes. And so I was able to get there at the last hour of the thing, and I could see like Doug Baldwin telling my joke that I wrote and killing.
Oh, you write the joke for okay.
So that's I wrote it. I hand them a paper of jokes and they give it to Doug Baldwin, and Doug Baldwin's like, I'll take this joke and I'll take this joke or whatever, and then they would murder, and then I'm like, Doug Baldwin just killed my joke. I wrote that. I'm the guy. It was pretty fun, and then I got to perform on the one with like Ricardo Lockett, and so I got to meet Tyler Lockett also. Yeah, and he was like really cool. And then I knew John at that point, so John was like, make fun of his hairline and like this. These are the things we make fun of him for. So he was giving me like ammunition,
inside stuff too.
So it was good. The Ozzy Osbourne story is really funny because my dad did a twisted tune of his, and
I am
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus to the tune of I Am Iron Man. Yeah.
And so the video was on MTV featuring Ozzy Osbourne, and so they had Ozzy come out to just film it basically. Oh, and then. That's cool. Were you a fan of his when you? No, you were young. You were like 7 in the picture. I was like a 7-year-old kid, and so like. I was just going like, who's this guy that swears a lot?
Did he swear a lot? Oh,
yeah, he was just like... I just remember walking in the studio and he's on the phone yelling, fucking whatever. I'm like, I'm not allowed to say that, like whatever.
That's awesome.
But yeah, most people are really good to you. Billy Gardell is another comedian that really...
from Mike and Molly.
Yeah, kind of gave me some help and
you met Bill Burr.
Bill Burr.
That was like in 2009.
Yeah,
and you even called it that you're like, Bill Burr doesn't even need a caption. And he's like, now he's really big.
He's huge now.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the top comedians.
Well, it's funny you say like I call.
I've always been a fan of his too. Though. Yeah. He used to go on Conan all the time, and I would laugh so hard.
Yeah. So like when I was in high school, I remember. I used to watch these Comedy Central half-hour presents. They were on at late at night.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how I found them or like whatever, but I just started watching them and it was great. And so it was Bill Burr, Pablo Francisco, like Dane Cook, Nick Swardson, and so I would go to lunch and everyone would be like quoting Nick Swardson. I'd be like, wow, you guys saw that too? That's crazy. Oh, Nicholas. And so that, I mean, a lot of influences and a lot of good people.
No, that's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, those guys have been at it. That's the thing is, you think about like those guys have been at it for like 30 years now.
Yeah.
So every time I'm like, why am I not Bill Burr? You're 20 years left.
Yeah, takes a long time.
Yeah.
So because how long? 2008, 2009. So what? Like 10, 11 years?
That's 10 years ago, and Bill Burr was like famous yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It takes
and
time.
then like 10 years after he'd already had a half-hour special.
Mm-hmm.
Now finally Netflix gives it to him, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, it's
fine.
It's a grind. It takes
a long.
But like you said, you're going to continue to learn. So I think you'll continue to get better.
Yeah.
And your Instagram and Facebook, all those followers, that will grow. It's not going to get less unless you get canceled because you have a racist tweet or something.
Well, I went through a process. Excuse me. I was going to be on a NBC show called Bring the Funny. And it didn't. I didn't get. They cut me a day before, but they didn't tell me. It's a whole show business thing. But I filled out this online application. It was like, what would you do with $250,000? I was like, vote Republican. And and then but I got the thing.
Yeah.
And then they had to go through my tweets, but they didn't say it. They go like, hey, we found these if you want to take a look at them. We're not saying you have to delete them, but we just wanted to show them to you.
Was it political or was it?
No, it was very like, I'll tell you one of the tweets. It was like, first of all, they got mad at one that was like me in a Hawaiian skirt and it said, my culture is not your prom dress. Because at the time, that was like a big thing going on in the cultural conversation. Like some white lady was wearing a Japanese dress to prom or something like that, and all these people were like, my culture is not your prom.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Weird.
So I thought, like, I'm wearing. It's
That's
fun.
pretty funny.
And I thought that's a pretty funny joke.
Yeah. Well,
but they were like, hey, that's that. We got to take that down.
Okay.
But then there was one tweet that was like, 2009, where I go like, writing jokes about race is like picking low-hanging fruit off a tree, which is why a lot of Mexican comics do it or whatever. And it's like, it's not. I'm allowed to say but it's like, it's not a good joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's
so I go like, that's fair. I'll take that down. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not too be like, that's my brilliant material. No, it's not. And someone's gonna get mad at it.
Sure.
So whatever.
Well, what do you think about the new Chapelle special? Because he got some flack for some of the stuff he said.
The third one that just came out was brilliant. I didn't like his first two Netflix ones that much, but the third one was brilliant, sarcastic satire that I think we were used to because
with Chapelle,
because he goes like, just say no. What's so hard about that? Like, that's so brilliant.
Yeah. No,
and
he's great.
Even though he laughs harder at his own jokes than anybody else, it's still so funny that you're like, you deserve to laugh that hard. You wrote that joke.
No, and that's a guy that I feel like he hit it young.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe that's what was hard for him, and that's why he had to take a break, because it's like he was almost too young. It hit too fast.
Right.
So
when I finally get famous, I'm going to be so ready. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like 48.
Well, it's a sliding scale with fame. I mean, because some people might say 15 million views. That's already
people. I mean, what's funny
where
is,
do you say? I mean, Craig Gass has been on Sex and the City and Family Guy and Howard Stern. But I think he's I mean, so it's like it depends.
We ran into each other in Honolulu.
Yeah,
right?
That's awesome.
And then I thought
randomly,
right?
Was it a comedy club or no?
No, I mean I think he hit me up a week before and he was like, "How long are you in Honolulu? Where's your show at?" And I was like, "Oh, February 8th." And he's like, "Cool, I'll try to stop by." And I was like, "What the fuck? I mean, I run into him every once in a while just because he's in Seattle and does comedy in Seattle. But so then a couple nights before my show, I flew in early, and so did he, I guess. So he had a show in Maui like 2 weeks later, but he just wanted to be in Honolulu for a while.
Right.
And so he was just hanging out I showed up to like a comedy show. And then Craig Gass walked in.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing here?" And he's like, "I told you I was coming out." And I was like, "I forgot."
Dude, he's a stand-up guy. Like, I love
and
that.
he was like, what sucked is like, he went on and he was like, "How late are you on?" And I was like, "I think I'm last." He's like, "I'll try to wait." But then it's like after 17 open mic comedians, you're like,
"Oh, it was an open mic." Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was kind of like.
All right.
So he's like, I gotta go.
Cool.
I love you, but
I know you got a show tonight, so I don't want to keep you much longer. But I do like to end with a charity. So, did you have a charity or cause that you are passionate about, or?
What's funny is you prepped me with that, and I thought about it on the way here, but my dad has done a lot of stuff for World Vision. I think they're a good group.
What's that?
They go to they build schools in Africa and that kind of you
great.
Adopt a kid through that.
Yeah. Like they used to have those ads on TV.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Okay.
Some would say that I think the criticism of it from some of my wokest friends is that they push Christianity on them a little hard. But I think in the long run, I think it's fine. If they're teaching them the right things about Christianity,
I have a buddy. He's a preacher, and he's hardcore Christian. Right. We don't always agree on things, but he goes to Africa and he brings these kids shoes and everything. I'm like, that's great, man. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. So you
go I think people are worried about colonization.
Right.
Light,
you know what I mean? I understand that concern, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but I know they do great work, and I think
cool.
I think they're good people.
That's awesome. Well, you've worked with some of the biggest names in the business. You've accomplished a lot so far with your own comedy special, Laffy Taffy, which people can find on YouTube. You've had viral videos. I'm excited to see what the future holds for you.
Me too.
Is there anything else on the horizon that we should look at? Possibly Fallon, maybe? Or
hopefully.
Else?
10 months from now.
Yeah. You're on tour. People go on your website.
Yep. Touring around, AndrewJRivers.com. I open for a guy named Steve Hofstetter a lot, who's constantly on tour.
That name sounds really familiar.
He's like a famous YouTube comedian.
Okay.
But I'm on a lot of his tours.
Cool.
And then just hanging around Seattle, trying to get something going.
Yeah. Well, next time,
trying to put out an album this year.
Yeah,
I think this set is ready.
That's what you got to do because I heard
because I'm not on Pandora and stuff like that.
Right. So Liz Mealy, she was a comedian from New York. She said she's on satellite radio a lot. Sirius. I guess they give you royalties when you're on those raw dog comedies and stuff. She said the royalties from the Sirius radio pays her rent.
Yeah.
So that's a good one to get. And she made the 2 albums herself.
Right.
So just do it yourself. Put stuff out there and get on satellite radio.
I just recorded a thing and so I was talking to my manager, and what's funny is because I'm like Titus, I'm like, that's my guy,
Yeah.
And he just does 90-minute specials. And so I was like, hey, I'm 15 minutes away from 90. And I was telling my manager that, and he's like, well, just do 50 minutes.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah. Leave them wanting more. That's what I would say.
They're not going to play the whole thing,
right. Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, then just save it. You're fine. But, but I get in my head about I want to show everybody that I'm better than everybody, and just do the jokes, man. It's
exactly.
fine.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
It,
check out your social media.
Absolutely. Andrew J. Rivers.
AndrewJRivers.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Wow, what a great episode. I laughed so hard. I think that's the hardest I've laughed in one of these in a long time. Definitely follow Andrew Rivers on social media. Check AndrewJRivers.com for tour dates. If you like this episode, please feel free to write me a review or share it and tag me. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode or thoughts on upcoming episodes. Do you want certain guests that you want me to interview, or do you just want more comedians, more musicians, sports people? Reach out to me on social media. Let me know. Until next time, I want to thank you so much for listening and hope you have a great day.